to Dirtbag Baseball Nation, everybody. And as we're getting ready to tie this series on the UCL and Tommy John tears and taking the myths or the perceptions and changing them into the realities for you and stuff like that, you are aware that the last few episodes we really dove into what the UCL consists of, some prevention methods, the muscle importance to be building strength around the actual UCL tendon in your elbow. And now Adam and I are going to do a two-part series here to bring this all home and hopefully answer all those uncertain questions out there, uncertain thoughts in your mind out there, and really solidify it. And again, like we say, as always, you know what, feel free to reach out to us anytime and follow up with us afterwards. Definitely. I mean, whether you do get it, you should still follow up with us just to make sure 100% you get it, because this stuff, it can be overwhelming, and we don't want it to be overwhelming. So again, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about, can mechanics, strength, and mobility help prevent injuries, and what some of the recommendations that Adam has through, again, their research and their data and his working as a throwing guy right now at Eckerd College, and so on and so forth, as well as on his own with all the players that you work with, and recommended insights for it. So, you know, we're going to cover long toss, you know, weighted balls, arm slots. We'll get that, because I think that's probably most of the perceptions out there, Adam. You know, I know you're going to go over that, and then get really right down to mechanics and strength, and really what you've seen has really helped build your players. So again, welcome to the show, buddy. And I'm excited to bring this home with you, buddy.
All right, thank you. Yep, and as you said, we started to tease weighted ball and long toss back in episode 8. So those who heard the buzzwords mentioned, we'll actually get into them here in these couple of episodes. But like you said, we're kind of getting into the physicality that affects throwing, whether it's strength, mobility, tight hips, being mobile in a certain joint, modalities of how we train. I definitely think all of that's important to get into, but I can start right up front and say, when it comes to tight hips or increasing your deadlift or getting strong, improving mobility, all of these things, they play a role in decreasing injury or sport performance, but the evidence is really inconclusive in the end. There's no question being stronger is good. I'm not going to tell you being stronger isn't good. I'm not going to tell you being more mobile isn't good. The better I can move through a longer or wider range of motion efficiently, that's awesome. But that doesn't necessarily equate to an injury risk, at least not one that has been measured conclusively to this point, which I think it's important to dive into, whether we're assessing injury risk or performance metrics. And as I said, I'm going to tell you every single day of the week, I love going to the gym. I love getting stronger. I love contrast training, which is lifting heavy and following it up with something super explosive. I am all in on that. And I would tell you that's going to help anyone with their performance, but evidence is still inconclusive of whether or not that's actually going to impact injury risk. And then kind of going on from there, I think one of the things that we can really get into is, as you said, those actual risk factors. So as I kind of dive into those risk factors, I'm going to pull up my slide, and here we go. Let's share that screen. So risk factors that impact valgus load. Now, again, this is along the same lines. This isn't necessarily things that, oh, if you do this, you're tearing your UCL, or if you do these things, you're not going to perform well. Some of these can benefit your performance, and some of these may harm your performance. but they impact valgus torque. And obviously that's what we're here to talk about. So I know early on I'd mentioned I had shoulder trouble. So this first piece with sidearm pitching, this is kind of like a rock and a hard place for me. And I'm sure it is for so many who struggle with shoulder issues. I know this is kind of a long intro into sidearm throwing, but I threw sidearm because throwing over the top killed my shoulder. I couldn't do it any longer. But I had to accept the risk that throwing sidearm increases valgus torque on the elbow. And if we think back to that math equation that we talked about in episode 8, it's not that because valgus torque goes up, we're getting injured right away. Torque isn't necessarily bad. There's just a certain threshold that we can handle. So sidearm pitchers have to know, or their coaches have to know, that they are dealing with higher torques throwing from that lower arm slot. So the training or the rehab and the rest and recovery that they do on the side becomes significantly more important. Then moving into less elbow flexion at maximum external rotation. So less elbow flexion is obviously the same words, just used differently, as saying extension. So a straightened out arm. The less elbow flexion we have at maximum external rotation, the greater valgus torque we have. So the exact opposite, the more elbow flexion we have, the less valgus stress we have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so y'all can see my face again as I talk through this, because I think you do need the visual. So again, that would be less elbow flexion or more extension. So this is increased valgus torque. There's more stretch on my UCL right here, so it's a riskier position, which again, that's why sidearm, it makes sense. You can start to see, if I just throw sidearm with my arm out here, there's greater stretch on it, leading to more stress on my UCL. However, if I throw with a ton of elbow flexion or a super far bend here, my UCL is more relaxed. So there's less stress on it, making it less stressful overall. There's less torque on the ligament. Now, I'm not going to go around telling everyone that throwing from here is going to generate a lot of speed or that it's great for performance. That's why it's important to kind of find that fine line or that happy place between avoiding injury risk and performing at a high level. Now, it's definitely comfortable for me to tell anyone we want to be somewhere between 80 and 100 degrees of flexion extension, depending on what word we use. But if this is 90, then I can get into 100 degrees of flexion or 80 degrees of flexion. That's kind of what I would tell coaches, especially at the youth level, when they're working with guys learning to find their natural arm slot or just get comfortable in throwing. I would instruct living in that 80 to 100 degree range. I'll go back to my screen share now as I continue to dive through what increases valgus torque. So as we move down the line, trunk rotation before front foot strike. Now this isn't super common. In fact, it's unseen at the big league level. This is kind of our hip shoulder separation thing. That's now a buzzword all across a baseball. But hip shoulder separation allows us to create torque across our core, a big stretch to propel the upper body forward, and eventually the arm and hand through the ball to generate velocity. But if the trunk rotates before front foot strike, so if my chest opens or if my chest is facing home plate as my front foot lands, that's creating somewhat of that arm lag. So now I'll allow y'all to see that rather than me just talking over it. So if I'm landing out here and I've got this big arm lag, I'm back to that same elbow stretch, creating more torque across, more valgus torque across my UCL. So now, of course, going back to the screen share, the kind of funky debate now is going into increase maximal external rotation. So as we increase maximal external rotation, valgus torque is going to go up. The issue is increased maximum external rotation is associated with higher velocities. That's why, as we talked about, Kirk, in previous episodes, or that screenshot that you talk about with major league pitchers, that huge layback, that's the maximum external rotation. Major league pitchers are sitting somewhere between 165 and even 180 degrees or greater of maximum external rotation. Now, I'm not going to tell anybody, especially at the younger levels, to go out and train to get increased maximum external rotation. Allow that to occur over time, and it will. There's a reason that you see the guys in the big leagues throw with high levels of maximum external rotation. They've thrown for so long, that's their body's adaptation. However, because they have that increased maximum external rotation, they have more torque. It's just kind of a funky debate that we have to have in baseball of whether we're training for performance or to decrease injury risk.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation for sure. And again, before I started this journey with you guys myself and stuff like that, I always spoke of like almost when you were talking about your rotation, your flexion and stuff like that, sitting in that, I always say about that 90 position, it's really nice. And you're pretty much in your strongest, powerful position. I can show the parents and the players how they can get their whole body engaged with the rotation and coming through that as well. But it's funny when you talk about going to the 100 and stuff like that, that's where pictures that I pop out to me, Adam, were Roger Clemens and Nolan Ryan. They got those arms there and they just came out at you. And we kind of, I guess in the baseball terms, we talk about it almost the perception, well, you don't want to be there because you're short arming. Versus long arm and stuff like that, because I think it's that reality of they see this, so it just looks like that instead of all nice and loose and nice and long, right? But I think that's super important, audience, of what Adam was saying, that, it's not as simple as a short arm or a long arm. Those are actually, don't even worry about that stuff. It's understanding that in that 80 to 100 range, you're in about the most optimal, I guess is the right word, throwing position, arm slot to de-stress the valgus load. So I think that's super important.
If I can hop back in, I just want to make a clarification.
Sure.
Obviously, when I was explaining that flexion versus extension, I talked a lot about it from this sidearm slot.
Yeah.
That's where I'm comfortable, right? I told you I'm comfortable with a lower arm. A lot of that's because of my shoulder. I think it's important for youth coaches especially to recognize that that doesn't mean that throwing with the super high arm, or as we know, the Iron Mike machines, that's not safe either, because I still have that same extension. It's a little bit different if I'm getting my tilt to get my arm higher, but if I'm just extending my arm to get it higher, I'm running into the same exact issue, whether I'm throwing with a straight arm from a sideways position or over the top. That's why that 3/4-ish arm slot is usually a safe place to be for just about everyone.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you're out there right now with Adam and myself or whatever, the other one that I bring up with that when I'm working on pitchers and stuff like that, and throwers in general, is, just shoot your arm up and you immediately feel all your shoulder muscles starting to pinch too. You're not putting them in an optimal rotation position and a comfortable one. So, again, that's why we're always talking about educating and learn to feel your body. And I get it. It's tough to understand what Adam and Daryl and I are talking about when we talk about that, or other maybe your other trainers at home where you are. But when you learn, break it down. Don't just do it because we said to do it or said not to do it. Feel it out so you totally understand, and your mind goes, oh my God, I get what those guys are talking about out here. Try to fight through it. And you'll realize if somebody was resisting even just your fingertips out there, you feel that load on your elbow. You feel it immediately, and you're not even throwing a baseball, and find that 80 to 100 like we're talking about, whether it's the side or the front or over at the top, and you'll start to go, oh my God, yeah, I can feel the power of my body, the deload of the stress on my shoulder, my elbow, in this case, your elbow for sure. But it's important that you do that. And it's important for us to recommend you to do that for sure. So you really do understand what we're talking about. So that was actually really good insight. I didn't expect the sidearm conversation, but again, because we don't want to leave anything off the table. And I would have, I'll be honest, I'll take that ownership myself. Thank you very much for putting that in there, Adam, because I forgot about the sidearmers.
Yeah, no problem. And as I said, I throw sidearm myself. That's how I finished my career because it's the only way I could get through it. Throwing sidearm isn't bad, but it's important to understand the risk that goes with it. And I'm not going to tell a youth coach to teach someone to throw sidearm. I'm a huge proponent of telling someone to find their natural arm slot. And there's so much coaching that goes into the younger populations, but I think it's way more important to work on the sequencing rather than trying to tell whether to put someone in a finite position with their arm. Because that's why we said we like to talk about a range. I'm not going to stick someone at 90 degrees. I'm going to allow them to find what's natural as they whip their body through to throw the ball.
That is awesome, dude. Seriously. That's a really big point to make as we go through then closing out this journey. And again, why it's important. We are going to do a town hall forum after these next few episodes or whatever, and that because we are getting a lot of feedback, and we do know there's still a lot of uncertainty out there. And so Daryl and Adam and I are going to sit down and open up a Zoom forum and stuff like that, where you can all come on and ask those questions and really dig in. And so you walk away happy and build a network, build your own network for sure. So awesome that you said that, Adam, because when we first start our journey with meeting new pitchers, new players in general, but let's say on pitchers and stuff like that, is I always say, we're here. You don't know me, I don't know you really yet. So we have to build that trust network, and everybody's different. So it takes some time to build that. But as we go through our journey, the same as with Daryl and Adam on the UCL information out here, we want to eventually get to here. And I hope this is where we're getting with you, is that, you know what, we're passionate about it, and we're trying to bring the right message to you in an educational forum. So when we look at players for the first time, we do exactly what Adam said. We collect data. I tell you, I'm collecting data in this session. I'm not going to change you at all, because I know in your mind, every little move, right, Adam, every little change or alter, whether it's from the feet up to the arm, that's an overpowering thing in your own mind because you haven't done it. It's easy for us to say, well, I know this is right, or quote unquote right, but to you as a person, that's really an overload on the mind. That's stressing out the mind now. So just think about that when you're talking with your trainers and that, or building that relationship with your trainers wherever you are or whatever, and that get that person that, you know what, does exactly what Adam said. So many of them just they want to look great out of the gate, and they're going to change it here and here and here and here. And you walk away and go, oh my God, that guy's really smart. I'm going to come back and give him thousands of dollars. We're not saying they're not smart, but we're saying take it in slow increments, because this is a journey, as they say. It's an ongoing journey for a long time, and based on you as an individual too, right? I would think you would agree, Adam, right? You're working with pitchers now, even at the collegiate level, and everybody is their own unique person.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, I want to give them the world on day one. There's no question about that, because in my mind, I see what they are the first day they step on campus. And in my mind, I got to think, how am I getting them to year 4 draft ready by day 2? The issue is we can't make 4 years of improvements in 1 to 2 days. So it's about understanding that process, like you said, going through an assessment period, building up over time, picking segments to hit on, whether it's a sequencing thing, whether it's overall strength and physicality, whether it's mobility, hammering out piece by piece until we can finish the puzzle when the journey kind of comes to an end.
Fantastic. Yeah. I love it, brother. I love it as everything and stuff like that. Anything that you really want to get out there just before we go into part 2 and bring home, your mechanics and, your strength, your mobility, your fatigue, a few good insights that you can leave the audience with, that they can at least start the journey to success.
Yes. All right. So this will be probably a good culmination to end part one.
Okay.
What I'm going to talk about is everybody's favorite thing to do as a child is riding a bike. I don't know about you, Kirk, but I have been on bikes where the chain popped, and braking became I guess trying to then get up the hill that it popped on became a serious issue, and my knees got a little scraped up. But the reason I bring this up for pitching or the elbow, going back to what we talked about early on in this episode, the strength, the mobility, the arm slots, training the right way, recovery modalities, whatever it is, if we get that bike chain stronger in every one of those aspects, but we leave one piece alone, is the chain overall any stronger? No, it's not. Because the chain itself didn't get stronger, we got links of it stronger. So it's important, as I said early on, we have to attack the entire process. Maybe we do it in pieces, but eventually we need to get the chain itself stronger. Otherwise, we're just dealing with the weakest link problem. So yes, the evidence is inconclusive of whether or how much strength plays a role or how much mobility plays a role. But if we leave those things alone, they can very well become the weakest link, and that's why injury can occur.
Love it. Love it. I'm going to leave it right there because I know it needs to be left there. So there you go, Dirtbags. Make sure you're back in with Adam and myself as we wrap this 2-part series up and start explaining exactly the components that he just talked about, giving you some final insights and recommendations and stuff like that to make all the links strong and build the best chain possible. I guess that's the best way of putting it, right, Adam?
Exactly.
Good stuff. All right. We're excited about it for sure. And make no mistake about it. We hope you're excited to wrap this journey up with us and be right back here on the next episode with Adam and myself. And until then, you know what time it is, Dirtbags. It's time to get up, get after it, and get dirty.